Okay, people, so I am here with Carlos B. Miller, the director, the writer, the film philosopher. You know what I mean? Between sins. Yo, Carlos, thank you very much for joining me, man. Really appreciate that.
Thank
How's
you for
everything
having me,
going?
Kevin. Everything is great. Thank you for having me. Um, I appreciate the opportunity, and I appreciate you taking your time out to watch the film. I mean, I know it's a lot of films out there that you could be watching. So for you to watch mine, salute to you and thank you.
Hey, no problem at all, man. Look, when AJ hits me up, I know she's got something good up her sleeve. And yet again, she threw me your face, man. And yeah, I really did enjoy it. I really honestly, man, I honestly enjoyed it. Because I felt that you're giving this story and you're showing all these different elements, right? The good, the bad, the gray, right?
Mhm.
And so as a viewer, you're navigating these things, but we're being shown the threads that are pulling these characters in these different directions. So it's not like, oh, he's obviously bad and he's doing, but you're understanding these things, right? You definitely, so definitely a bit when Puda, you know what I mean, gives that fat wad, and you're like, yo, don't take it, man. Don't, what are you doing? But then you kind of understand why, right? So it's just the things like that, and then you're showing all of these different things. The Skylar, right? The way she reacts at the beginning, and then how that's all developed. Just all of these different things that you're bringing to life, and it's just like it makes it so intriguing.
Thank
Like,
you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
oh no, man.
Yeah, it was. The story is really the collision between the physical and the spiritual. So when the main character Koi takes the money, he's Puda, who's a representation of this physical argument of just being a taker, being a consumer,
Mm,
only being able to understand what can be seen with the eyes and not with the soul. So when Koi takes that money, he's being pulled back into this physical. However, throughout the story and from the beginning of the story, he's trying to leave this physical and go into the spiritual. But to tap into the spiritual means tapping into what you can't see, the incorporeal, right? The invisible. God. The story is really big and centered around God and goodness and love. So it's a very hard thing for someone to leave a world that they're used to seeing and that they're used to interacting with, and now embracing something that you can't see, and have faith that what you can't see will manifest in the things that you can see. So yeah.
mm. Yeah, and I guess especially when you're going back to the very environment which you left, right? Because the only things that are there are the things that you were a part of, right? So trying to then get to this new place, you're still in the thick of all the all the other things that were holding you back. So it's trying to, because it's not like you have new friends,
Right.
right? So you're around the people that you used to hang with, and being you know from jail, it's not like there's a load of new people that are like, oh, come into my house. There's people have that hesitancy, they've got that prejudice. So it's just like trying to change when you have all of that weight. It must be a difficult thing. So it's seeing all of that, the way you show that is very interesting. And also, as you said, I think you notice that there is this religious kind of framework around it. But the thing that I thought was interesting, because we have the church, but then we also have the men's group, right? And so for me, it showed that kind of that situation where I forget it's been a long time since I read the Bible, so but I remember from my Sunday school days, which again a very long time ago, right? But it was there was this thing which I always found very interesting because yeah, I forget who said it, but it was just like you know, religion doesn't have to be within the confines of a place, right? Wherever you are could be your church, could be your, you know what I mean, your place of worship. And that's what, and then that completely blew everything for me because I'm just like, why am I coming to Sunday school when you can be in church anywhere, right? That's what it says it here. So why are you trying to enforce this on me? But I thought that was interesting, seeing these two different environments and then the threads you weave between them and how, right, those different perceptions like interact in the story.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you think about Genesis and the early biblical characters, there wasn't a church.
Mm,
There wasn't a Bible. Before Moses came around, um, there wasn't a Mosaic law. So if you think about Abraham and how did he come to know God, how did he come to know God? He did what I would call deduction. He saw things in the earth and he was like, there has to be something greater than this. So you're absolutely right on one front where the church is really not a building, it's the people. So that's what that men group represents. Because a
mm.
lot of times we think we do have to go to a building, and there is a place and a purpose for the building. When you think about Jesus Christ and Him establishing the church. But with that being said, the church is not the building; it's the people. So that was the importance of that men's group. It's about the relationship with other people who are like minded and who are going the same way that you are trying to go, which is again back to the spiritual and away from the things that we can see on this earth. Biblically, it talks about if you want to save your life, you got to lose it. You got to give up this world to gain everything. So the men's group is is almost therapy in some sense. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? But therapy through the eyes of God, I guess.
Yeah. No, that I think you definitely kind of get that, right? I feel that definitely comes out in the story, though the narrative is you do tell this story in an interesting way because within it all you weave in, you know, the the terrible situation with Corey Jones, which I thought was interesting. And especially when you think, right, that happened in 2015.
Right.
It feels not a lot has changed. You know, you know what I mean? And so it's interesting that that is this kind of device within the film. And also then the way like the characters are around that incident and you can see, especially like, at the end when we see Coy, talk to his friend outside the church and they're talking about, the protesting, which there was a really interesting line in that conversation where the guy, I forget his friend's name, but he's just like, man, because I think he's like, yo, it seemed like you were hesitant to burn it down, and he's just like, well, I realized that we don't have much here as it is. If I was gonna burn it down, who's going to replace the things, right? What are they going to replace it with? Another liquor store? And that, like, what's going to happen? And that was always this thing that when you were watching everything that kind of took place over the pandemic, right, with the injustices and then the reactions to those injustices, but it was just like, wait, you're burning down your own neighborhood, right? And that I find that just didn't make sense to me because I'm like, look, I don't really believe in burning down anywhere. That's not necessarily, because now you've given people a reason to go against you, to be like, oh, look, they're
Right.
doing. But it's like go to the neighborhood of the people that are actually putting these weird laws in place, that are putting not who are behind these procedures. You know what I mean? But you're in your neighborhood, destroying your neighborhood. There's no money going into it in the first place. So why do you think they're gonna rebuild it any different?
Absolutely. And to kind of backtrack, when I first wrote Between Sins, the Corey Jones narrative wasn't a part of the original script. So Corey Jones was interwoven in the story after the incident happened. And what kind of really drew me to the story was that the stretch of road where he was killed, which is in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. I traveled that road my whole life, going to high school, elementary, and other parts of just my childhood because my mom taught along that stretch of road.
Right.
So that was one connection to it. The other one, obviously, being that he's a black male, around the same age as myself. I think we're about a year apart. And then the third connection was him being a church drummer. So
Mm,
it was these elements that almost was was very grounding and very humbling for me because this was, and not saying that other deaths weren't profound to me, but this was really the first death where I felt like a first murder. I can't even say that I felt like, wow, this really could have been me. Like
mm.
this is a great young man whose life was taken for no reason at all. This was a man on the side of the road trying to get his car repaired, and officer, or ex-officer, abused his power and took his life for no reason at all. So yeah, and on top of that, I've had this struggle. I'm gonna be honest with you. I had this struggle with, as a black community, and just even as people in general, us always not addressing
Mm,
everything that uh, faces us, and particularly the black community. It's not just police. I mean, it's a lot of it is ourselves, but we don't like to have that conversation because we feel like
mm,
if we have that conversation, we're taken away from um, the police officer conversation. But a life is a life, and no matter how it's taken, it needs to be addressed. And all these situations affect us, um, as men, as women, as people, as children of God. So I didn't want to be one-sided in the environment of Coy and Puda and the other characters. Because when we turn on the TV, we're seeing people killed by people in our own neighborhood. We're seeing police officers. It's not just one thing. So
no.
I wanted to show it as everything and not make it this microcosm of just this one incident only being done by this particular group or this particular organization, et cetera, et cetera. So,
Mm. Well, I think if you're only trying to show something from one direction, like one narrative,
right,
and people understand that there are nuances to situations, then they lose faith in you, right? How can someone believe you if you're only talking about one aspect of things and you're trying to ignore everything that's going on?
right,
Right? Because an injustice is an injustice, right? When you talk about everything, you're not negating that. You're
right,
just, you're showing all the different situations, all the things that can leverage a situation.
right. I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. Um, yeah, and that was all I was trying to do. I'm very um, um, at least I try to be very precise on what parts of storytelling having the characters interact with, because I truly believe in world building, and I believe in showing an entire world. Like if we look at just like the Bible, for example, it is a very thorough world. If you look at it from Genesis to Revelations, like these are well built worlds, and I always like want to take the characters that I create or that I you know um, make I have a problem with saying create sometimes. So that I make because it puts me in a light that I don't like to be put in. So so these characters that I make, I try to put them in a world that is full and that is thorough and that has some depth and that is not 2D, if you will.
I have to be honest, right? There was, you know, when looking at the film at the beginning, I was worried, you know what I mean? Because I was a bit like, oh, is it just going to be this other tale around violence and all of that kind of thing? You know what I mean? Just the regurgitation kind of thing. Now, when I say that, you know, again, AJ sent it. So I knew there was going to be something to it, but it is like, okay, how is like, what's going to make this different? And I think the difference is the way you inhabit the space, right? I did notice you used a lot of kind of close-up camera work on the characters, which really bring you into their orbit and add that kind of intimacy to it. And then the way, as I said, look, we tell this story, we come at this story from these different angles. So we see the full tapestry of it all, which I thought was interesting. So what kind of brought this to life, right? What made you want to tell this story?
You actually you hit on something very, man, you're good, man. You hit on something very important to me. So when it's from the genesis of this idea, I always wanted to tell a story that had a faith-based background, but it was for me not necessarily meant for people who go to church. So that's why I opened up the film the way I did, because I wanted to capture the people who I grew up with, meaning the people who are in the streets and are still in the streets. So I always felt if I hit them with a soft opening, I won't be able to capture their attention, or I might lose their attention from the beginning. Now I do realize that I might lose another audience based on that, but I always felt okay if they give me 2 minutes past the intro, they'll see that it might be something else. More that has more depth.
Yeah.
But someone who is like how I grew up, in the streets, maybe not living the best of lives in terms of morally, they won't give you 2 minutes if they see that it is not in a direction that is kind of what they're used to in terms of action, in terms of crime, in terms of these cliches and stereotypical elements of storytelling. So that was definitely the basis for the intro. As far as Between Sins itself, it started off as a short. So I did my my graduate studies at NYU. And for my second year, I made a short called Between Sins. And it was a good short. I'm still learning. I'm still growing as an artist and honing my filmmaking skills in that toolbox. So I really had no intention of making a feature, but I was really pushed and encouraged by not only my classmates but my professors to kind of draw this out into a feature because there were elements in the short that they kind of really gravitated towards. And I would say in making that decision and in agreeing with them, it got me back on the right track, to be honest with you. I was, again, I know you're going to hear a lot of me giving all credit to God and all glory to God. But there was a time in my life where that may not have been the case, especially if I would have wrote a story that was more, more, I don't want to say worldly, but more just what you're used to seeing, as far as the normal genres. So I said with this film, Between Sins, it was my way of giving God my first fruits of my career, giving him my tithes, if you will, through film. And it might be the only chance that I get to do it. So that was kind of really the genesis and the reasoning behind Between Sins.
Okay. Now, one thing you said there, right? Because you're at film school,
Yes, sir.
you've made this short, but you had no intent, you had no real thought of a feature.
No, sir.
So why you go to film school, son? Like, what's happening here?
Well, I didn't intend for Between Sins to be a feature.
Ah, right.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Right. Okay. Yeah. It's just like, yo, what's Carlos doing?
Oh no! I've been wanting to make a feature since middle school. Like I got the film bug when it's funny. I always tell the story, but I was in middle school and I accidentally got placed into a TV production class,
Ah.
and I caught the bug in TV production class in the seventh grade, and from then on, I've always wanted to make movies. That's always been the ultimate goal. Now,
Okay.
how I would get there, I didn't know, of
Yeah.
course,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Like, okay. So, what were the things that kind of grabbed you back in those days? What was the kind of when you did this class? Right, what were the kind of things you were ingesting and you were thinking, hey, I want to make a film like that, or that's a director I'm looking up to, or you know what I mean? What
absolutely. Um, Storytelling. I'll say there's two things. I've been always captivated by character and by story.
mm,
So when I say character, I'm going all the way back to the basics, if you will, of Greek philosophers,
mm,
Aristotle, Socrates, Plato. And when you look at the original, one of the original definitions of character, it's the art of living. So that's really what I'm focusing on in Between Sins is when people say, okay, I want to become a better person, what does that mean? You know, how do you get there? And you look at the Greek philosophers, it was about practicing. It's
mm.
about living it, and that's one of the things that I believe is kind of left out. That we believe that we just wake up and become a decent person without no real rule book and without no real um, rule of law, if you will. So for me, that's a major reason why the Bible is important to me, because it has a standard. So it's like, okay, I can say I'm a good person, but without a real standard, I mean, I know people who, I shouldn't say it like this, but I know of people who have done horrible things, and they will say they're a good person.
Mm.
So what are we basing this standard on? Um, so for me, character is huge for me. Like I believe in, um, to the best of your ability, living, understanding what the morals are, and then practicing the behavior that perfects these morals. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's some important stuff you just said there, right? Because I think that was one of the big things why I kind of stopped going to church, really. Because, even as a little kid, I was seeing all these contradictions, and it's like you see people behaving one way during the week, and then you saw them at church talking all of this, and it's just like, hold on, but I know you were out doing this thing, right? I know you'll be having an affair, cheating on your wife. I know your kids are mad deep in drugs. Like, what's going on here? Because we're talking in this way like you're above everyone, but you're then living this other way the rest of the week, and it just didn't make any sense to me, right? And then now, I think for me, I thought, like, though the pandemic was just crazy, right? I thought it was a valuable way to see people's true nature.
Mm,
Because, as you said, like, it's easy to say, I'm a good person, but unless there's anything to back that up, how do we know?
absolutely.
Right. And you have a lot of people going, I'm an ally, I'm this, I'm that. But it's just like, yeah, it's easy to say that when you don't have to stand by those words. Because the amount of times when you see something go down and then suddenly everyone turns their back, right?
Absolutely.
And it's just these kind of things that I find really interesting, because everyone wants to talk and say certain things, but don't want to back it up. It was this, you know, when the whole Harvey Weinstein situation came to light, and then all these actors are like, oh, yeah, I always knew he was a piece of shit and blah, blah, blah. And then someone put together some footage of all these actors at the Oscars or Golden Globes and being like, I want to thank Harvey. I want to thank Hart. And you're just like,
Right.
yo, what's the deal? What's the deal? You were saying you knew about it, but you never called it out. Right. And so I think that's a very important thing to know, right? That it can be easy to, declare something, but
Absolutely.
are you living it? Are you practicing those things? And I thought that was really, telling in Koi, right? All the things you saw him doing and trying to do.
Right. Right. Um, a few thoughts kind of came to mind as you were saying this. One of my professors at NYU, he had a film called Carrie Wanda, Alec Brown. And forgive me, Alec, if I quote a line in your movie wrong, but one of the characters said, "Don't mistake the words of God with the action of men." You know, so it's that thing of I, I get we have a hard time we're seeing men and women do one thing and profess to believe in another thing, but that doesn't negate the truth in God's word. And I also say this: I had a teacher when I was in undergrad. I went to University of Florida, go Gators. I don't know if you know about Gators in UK, but we big out here in America. but I'll never forget, man. This was like maybe 20 years ago. I had a white professor, and he was teaching. He taught history, and he told us that he was at the sit-in in the 60s with Martin Luther King, et cetera, et cetera. And he had decided to do a sit-in with other blacks at the time. And he sat down at a bar and he said, the crowd, the white mob at the time, they came and pulled one black person off the seat and started beating him. And then
Mm,
they pulled another person off the seat next to him and started beating him. And he saw that they were making their way down toward him. And he said at the last minute, he got up and he left. And what he said was, I have a profound new respect for the sacrifices that these black men and women made, because at that time I realized I was white and I didn't have to take this beating.
mm,
So I was professing, yes, I believe in equality. Yes, I believe in fighting injustice, but it's a hard thing. It's a whole other thing to sit there when you know you
mm-hmm.
don't have to and take a beating. I mean, you really see who you are, and it was just profound. I had profound respect for him to say that, and to kind of have that understanding, of yo, I don't have to sit here. Now, it's kind of going along with what you're saying. Like, I can profess, saying to want equality and diversity, but what does that look like, and how far are you willing to go? Are you just
Yeah.
talking it, you know? But when it's the time to act, are you willing to act? And you're right. That's what the pandemic revealed.
Mm. Yeah, I think that it's this crazy thing. I remember I worked actually my first job, right? It was in a food court in a shopping center in Bromley, right, Kent. And when I started, like I thought I was applying for a job behind one of the counters and things like that. But no, they gave me a job waiting tables, but cleaning tables and all of that. But I'm just like, yo, it's money, right? I can pay bills, I can do things. So, whatever, man. I don't care. It's a job. And then you realize how racist this place was, right? Because they didn't really want black people behind the counter. And I think there was only two black guys behind the counter. The other people were girls.
Gotcha.
And one day, right, they sacked all the black guys. Just, and they made up excuses to do it.
Mhm.
And I was just like, nah, I'm not having this. So I went to the head office. I filed a complaint, went to the head office, and they were just like, I showed because they got this girl who supposedly was my friend to make up this whole thing that I hit her. And I'm just like, wait, what? I thought, the week before, she was just like, you should come with me and my family. We go to Jamaica for New Year's. It'd be great. Yeah. And then the next week, she's making up this story. And the thing was, I was on the other side of the of the building talking to another manager at the time. So there was evidence of me somewhere else. And I went to the head office and I put that in front of them. I'm like, you know what? This is lies. This never happened. What's going on here? And they were just like, well, we're still going to let you go because, a misconduct charge was brought against you. I'm like, yeah, but it was a lie. They're like, well, it still happened. So and that really just opened my eyes to the craziness of what can happen to you. But it was just, because, after that, it was just like, nah, I'm never backing down from these things. And there's, other incidents have happened, with racist bosses and things like that. But I just feel if I was to sit back and just ignore it, who am I? Right? Because you definitely understand in some places that for your career, probably makes sense to keep your mouth shut, right? To not say anything. But it's like, how can you look at yourself in the mirror if you're just willing to put your head in the sand, right? What does that mean? I was in a meeting recently and we were talking about like the celebration of the 70th birthday of the NHS, right? And it's also the 70th anniversary of the Windrush. And they were talking about it, and then they were like, oh, well, the Windrush happened before the NHS, so we don't actually have to have the Windrush within the NHS celebrations. And I'm just like, okay, let me ask you a question. Would the NHS be what it is without Windrush? And everyone's quiet. And I'm like, yo, would it be what it is without it? And they're like, no, probably not. I'm like, exactly. So it's part of the celebration. Right. And everyone has to admit it. Everyone has to be like, yeah, all right, you're right. But at that moment, you understand that, okay, these people don't like me now. Right. But it's just, who are you going to be? Right. I feel that's the thing. Who are you going to be? And you notice there's a load of people that want to declare one thing, but still want to put their head in the sand when the moment counts.
Yeah, it takes courage. It takes bravery, and I get it. It's not. That's not a. These are not easy traits to just blurt out and try to live. And even going back to what faith is, it takes courage again to leave the physical and embrace something that you can't see. So I get it. I like and we're all trying to put this front forward on the outside, but character is when no one else is watching. You know, that's where men and women are really built. When no one else is watching. And it's a hard thing to look at yourself in the mirror. It's hard. It's been hard for me to look at myself in the mirror at the time and say, Carlos, you got to make adjustments, man. Do you love God or don't you? Because if you do, you got to make some changes, fam. You gotta, either in or you out. And that takes a level of courage. That takes a level of bravery to go against the deception that I can put on when I step outside. But when I get back in the house, I know who I am,
Mm,
and I
yeah,
gotta face that.
yeah, yeah. Oh, but the interesting thing about your lecturer, right?
Yes.
He could have just told the story of, and I was there with King, and they protested, and I stood on sat on that stool.
Right.
Wait for that applause. You know what I mean? Like he didn't have to say. And as they got closer, I was just in fear, and I got up and walked out.
Absolutely.
Didn't have to say. And so, look, I always believed that you know what I mean, there's definitely times when you might falter. You might go, actually, I don't need that heat, man. Like I can't
Right.
deal with that, the ramifications of this situation.
Right.
But everything is a learning curve, right? Everything you gain from those experiences. So the fact that, you know what I mean, he's talking about this and actually will say what actually happened, I
Yeah.
think that's a big one, because there's a load of people that would stop at the point of, and I sat down on that stool.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And going back to like storytelling and character, that's what makes, in my opinion, that's what makes a movie or, something that we're watching on TV or in theaters interesting, because we see the progression of the character, the character arc. We see
Mm,
how the plot and how the world is altering a character from the beginning of a film, like Coy, when you see him leaving a prison to where he arrives at the end. And you get to see each plot, each circumstance, each decision that has fully made him go beyond the point of no return. So that's what's always drawn me to storytelling. The fact that a character can be fully transformed by the time we finish watching a movie, for better
mm.
or for worse. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. How? Because I will definitely say, man, the cast you got for this film, man, they did a fantastic job. And I should also say, right, because I definitely gave praise to Caroline Johnson and Skylar Rain Rowe when I was talking about the film, but I forgot to mention, you know what I mean, Taylor and Duval, because those performances as well, great performances, man. So how did you get these people involved in the film?
So I definitely first want to acknowledge George Taylor, who played Coy, Rigoberto Duval, who played Puda, um, Angela Khan, who played Angela, like I said, Carolyn Johnson, who played the mom of Coy, and Skylar Rain Rowe, who played the daughter of Coy as well. With that being said, the majority of this cast is non-actors. So the lead character, he was I didn't grow up with him, but I've known, we call him Slim, so I might slip up and call him Slim. But we know George Taylor. I've known George Taylor for about 15 plus years, and I met him actually in the music studio, doing early parts of my career when I was just doing music videos and just doing little odds and ends video type of work. I would see him in the studio, and we kind of created a real friendship in artistry. And he will always like let me know he's a thespian and that he wants to do stuff beyond music.
Mm,
So when opportunity came for this project, I kind of saw things in him that showed me that he can embody the Koi and embody the range of emotions that Koi displays throughout the film. So George Taylor, again, who plays Koi, he's a non-actor. Rigoberto Duval has an incredible story, real life story. He come he I'm gonna say this in a way, but he in a lot of ways he is Puda, and like he is Puda to the T.
mm,
Um,
mm,
and again, but he's a non-actor. Skylar Rain Rose, she's the true daughter of the main character of George Taylor. That's his daughter. That's his real life daughter.
Oh, okay.
So it's elements and it's surprises in there. And I'll say this: when I was at NYU, I had this teacher. Um, excuse, slipping my Alex Rockwell. He's a filmmaker, and he will always champion non-actors, and he will always like just say, "Man, it like trained actors are great, but they sometimes are too polished. Sometimes they are
Mm,
too clean, if you will, and sometimes you need a little bit of slime on your actors to make them just um, feel authentic in the world."
mm,
So he gave me this type of encouragement to look in my neighborhood, to look amongst my friends and family, and find these characters who I've seen my whole life, and identify traits in them that I can transfer into between sins. So credit to the training that I received and being able to identify to the best that I could, non-actors. I didn't have the money anyway. Let's keep it real. But so creativity sometimes comes with constraint. So
mm, mm. No, but I definitely respect that though, right? Because it's about giving opportunity.
facts.
And like there's times when you feel that you can do something, right? But no one's willing to give you that chance. So, when you give people an opportunity, you can reap the rewards. And I feel you definitely did with this feature, man.
Thank you. Thank you
So
so much.
how did you kind of communicate the story with them and their characters? Like, do you sit down with people? Like, do you use like reference material, music soundtracks? Like, how do you kind of work with cast to create, you know, the characters?
So speaking with George Taylor, if you ask George Taylor, he would tell you that there were spooky parts to this film because Coy is and was exactly where George Taylor was at in his life during this time. So he would tell you he didn't even have to reach to play Coy because it was so many elements um, displayed in Coy that was exactly who he is as a person and what he was going through at the time. The relationship that he has with Skylar in the film, that's where he was in real life with his daughter. They were having these problems and these roadblocks in their relationship, and it just was transferred to film. It's a lot of different spooky
Yeah.
things about this film. Like again, Puda, I can't. I wish I could say what's going on, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
things there that are true to life. Um, you see even in the film that a character who was killed in the film was killed similarly in real life later on.
Oh,
Yes. So it's some very surreal elements in this film, and I could go on and on and on and on. So a lot of time, I'll give you one example. It, there's a scene when Coy is talking to a young lady and she's trying to sell the car. I don't know if you remember that scene.
mm.
We actually found her right in that moment, and I showed her the script and the role, and she started breaking down, crying right before us. And me and George Taylor, we're like looking at each other like, "What's going on?" And she goes, "Yo, this exact thing just happened to me 3 months ago. This exact I don't want to give too much of the story away, but this exact scenario, this exact storyline happened to me." So that's the film.
Boy.
Like that's the entire film. So I really didn't have to reach. It was really showing people a script, and they're like, "Oh, well, this is me. I could do this," And it was only thing I was doing was refining and honing and kind of pulling out different things. But I didn't really have like I was showing them a mirror of themselves a lot of times.
Mm. Yo, that's some freaky shit. Like it just feels it was like right time for this to happen.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Huh. And because I noticed well AJ sent me a little bio for you, and it says like you took a break to start live fresh,
Yes, sir.
right? So how much did that kind of play on the story that you wanted to tell?
Uh, I, it's one of those things where, again, everything happens for a reason. So at that moment in my life, I didn't know how Between Sales was going to come about. And I was out here every day in the hot Florida sun, washing hundreds or giving showers, I should say, to hundreds and hundreds of homeless individuals every day. And I'm seeing my classmates, going to NYU, a lot of kids go out there and do great things. So I'm having
Mm,
conversations with classmates who are winning Oscars, who are, have shows here and have shows there. And I'm out in the hot sun making no money, believing that I have talent, believing that I have a purpose just like they do. And I'm out here, I say it like this, I used to say it like this, I'm out here washing asses,
mm,
washing butts. And I don't mean it in a disrespectful way, but I mean it in a way that is very real. So I'm out here scrubbing and cleaning toilet after toilet, shower after shower, 6, 7 hours a day. And God, how does this connect to my greater purpose? But during that time, I was learning about people. I was learning about humility. I was learning about dignity. I was learning about love. I was learning about um, a true care and understanding and compassion for humankind. And it helped me to steer from the direction I was going. Because again, I mean, if I made the films that I wanted to make, they would blend right into the rest of the films, that's out there right now.
mm,
Um, but that wasn't really my purpose. I'll say this: I do understand that there might be sections of people that don't get this film, but one thing I do believe is that, or I like to believe, is that everyone will feel something about this film, but they don't know exactly what they're feeling.
mm,
So
mm,
my goal was always to tap into the soul. And that's the element of my filmmaking I'm exploring. And Live Fresh kind of, surprisingly enough, helped me to do that, because I couldn't, I can no longer look at that person who has nothing and turn up my nose to them like they're nothing. Because when I'm having these conversations, oh, you're deeper than that.
mm,
You're more than just what's on the outside. There's something inside of you that, if the world was given a chance to see, they will embrace you and love you and want to see you um, rise up for your situation. And I think that's the element that's missing. Again, it's this physical thing of always wanting to see the outside and judge things based on what we see. And love is something that you can't see. It's you can see its fruits, but you can't see love.
mm.
And so that's what Live Fresh really did for me. It really helped me to tap into, become selfless, in a lot of ways.
Mm. But how do you decide to become that when you're still chasing your dreams, right? You haven't had any success,
Right.
right? But that's what you want. You want to be a director. You want to make things, right? And you haven't got there yet,
Right.
but you decide to give back. And it's you're giving back without having things to give, in a way, right? So
Absolutely.
like because you always hear people start these charities and philanthropic, organizations once they're at the top, right? Once they're in a place, and it's just like, oh, look at them giving money, and it's just like, but when you think of what they got, that's like a minuscule amount, right?
Right.
Like they're doing this thing because they're in this place. But when you're doing that without that other platform, right? That's impressive. Like that is something that's always I find interesting. So yeah, like what drives you to do that before you've got to where you want to be?
Um, I will say it wasn't easy. I mean, to keep it real with you, I cried a lot of times while I was cleaning, and helping others, because I very much could be in the same situation. I was sleeping on my mom's couch. Um, I mean, I maybe these past 10 years was maybe made no more than 10,000 a year. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just living in the same, in a lot of ways, in very close to the same poverty that I was trying to change. But to kind of go back, you're hitting on something because we do, you'll have that person say, I'll give back once I hit the lottery.
Mm,
You know what I'm saying? I'll give back once this happens. I'll give back once that happens. And I find that to be, uh, what's the word? I find that to be very dismissive of what you can do right now, right? So to give you an example, you look at manna in the Israelites. What is the because it's mentioned in between sins as well. What's one of the concepts of even that whole idea of angel food falling from heaven? Well, in the Bible it says, okay, you're going to get this manna and only take what you need to eat, and everything else will rot.
mm,
So if you try to take more, you won't be able to take more. And if you think about that concept and apply it to the world, if we only took what we needed, then there is no problem. That was the lesson that gets overlooked. Only taking what you need and leaving the rest for somewhere else. You know, all this building up and storing. So that I going back to the idea of me waiting till I'm able to store up something and then give back. It's just who knows where my mindset is at then? Because now
mm.
I'm in a whole consumer mentality and capitalistic mentality of being ferocious in consuming. So who knows if when I do get the money, I'm at the right character standpoint where I can be like, okay, I want to give back. Like that I'm not confident in myself that I'm going to be able to flip that switch on and just, oh, I got some money, let me go ahead and give it back. It's just I don't trust myself like that.
Mm, mm. I think that was definitely a big part of the pandemic, right? Because you saw people taking more than they needed, right? You go to the superstore and it was just like instead of going, I just need, one packet of toilet rolls, it's like I'm buying 20, right? I just need, one chicken and be like, I'm buying 20. And so you saw all the shelves go and everything, and people being like, where's the food? Where's the food? And it was just like there was plenty of stuff, but everyone went into this famine mindset and was just buying more than they actually needed because it was you didn't care about the other people, right? It was just like, well, I'm having this stuff. I need this stuff. When it's just like, well, you don't need it all.
Right.
But I think that's what happens sometimes.
Yes. That self-preservation like really kicks in. Like
Mm,
all that
mm,
matters is my survival and my well-being. And it's like, well, you're my brother, man. I don't care if you live in the UK, man. It's we're coming from one God, one creator. You know what I'm saying? So to love my brother as myself, well, yes, I must, because really you are me. We have the same DNA. You know what I'm saying? We have the same blood, you
yeah,
know.
yeah,
So
yeah.
so if I take from you, I'm really taking from my son in a way. I'm really taking from my brother who's really comes from my lineage of close proximity, if you will.
Mm,
But we don't look at it like that. You know, we look at a stranger as a stranger, and it's no, they're really your brother. They're really your sister. And if we had that mindset, a lot of things that are happening in our society wouldn't really happen, because I would like to think that you would do the most you can to take care of your family. And if we extend that outside just of our immediate family, then who knows where this world would be right now? We'd be
Mm,
a much better place.
yeah. Oh, no, definitely. But I think also in that vein, right, it's helping people, which, giving people opportunities, which you did with the cast of the film, because I think a lot of times we get to a place and instead of turning around and helping the next person up the ladder, it's just like, there's only room for me. So you're kicking the ladder away and be like, no, 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 this is my spot. I'm not giving it up. Rather than, which the group, right? When it's just like iron sharpens iron,
Right.
right? And that's always my fault, right? You want to be in a room with like-minded people because you learn, you gain, you evolve, and you sharpen yourself in those environments.
Right. Now, in the purest form, in the most idealistic form of the church, that's exactly what the purpose would be. Exactly what you're saying. You know, like, for you to be around other men and other women who want to help that soul see the full glow of light and a full, ray and array of light. That's the goal.
Mm,
So I wholeheartedly agree with you with that statement. Yeah.
mm. So how did the whole process of putting this film together go? Like, what was the shoot like, right? Like, how was the fundraising? How did it all go? Right? Was it what you envisioned making a feature would be? Like, what did you learn? What shocked you? What surprises were there?
Everything. I mean, everything. I mean, I am a completely different person after making this film than I was before. So at the time, I had an agent before I started shooting Between Sins. And I'm gonna give you a little bit backstory. At one point in time, I had roughly 400K on the table to try to shoot Between Sins.
Yep.
Um, and this was around the inauguration of Trump. And the investors at the time weren't really sure what the Trump presidency would do to the economic scene at the time. So they was kind of hesitant to put the money into the film.
Mm,
Uh, but at the same time, right before that, I was blessed with a grant through NYU and the Richard Begg Fund. And so I had received a grant um, that was supposed to help make the fund. Now, let me give you one little backstory as well. Right before I shot Between Sins, I had worked on a film with Chloe Zhao, who directed The Internals, who directed Sons My Brothers Taught Me, The Writer, et cetera, et cetera.
mm,
And when I was out on her first feature film that she did in Pine Ridge, South Dakota, which was a Native American reservation, I had saw her go through a situation where, and I hope Chloe doesn't mind me sharing this. How you doing, Chloe? But she lost a significant amount of funding while she was out there shooting the film. So she had a script that was supposed to be made for such and such amount of dollars, and it got drastically reduced. And I saw her persevere and push through all these obstacles and make a film that is beautiful to me. Um, Especially being able to work alongside her behind the scenes and just see every obstacle that she overcame. So fast forward to my turn to make my first feature film. And I'm having this situation now where my agent is saying, "What do you want to do at the time? Do you want to shoot this? Do you want to wait and see if the investors will, you know, sometime in the future actually put the money in, or do you want to shoot it with what you have?" Now I have nothing, but I still at this time and really still trying to go the non-actor route, but these are revolving and evolving lives, and a lot of these people who are in my community, they're going through circumstances where they might not be here 5 months from now. They might, you
Mm,
know, they might be in a different mindset, or they might have a dire situation that changes their availability. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna take this grant that I have and make this film. But what gave me the confidence to do that, again, was going back to seeing Chloe Zhao do it. So that was the beginning of me just taking my hands off the wheel and just going back to this thing of practicing what you preach. You know what I'm saying? Or what you believe in at the time. Like if you believe in faith, then believe in it and just keep on moving forward. So this was the hardest thing I've ever done because I never had enough. I had a lot of rejection. I had to do everything on the film. And when I say credit to all, to my producers, Tyler Cheatham, to the editor, the cinematographer, Jonathan Franklin, to my homeboy, I'm in his office right now, who helped me edit and was like the visionary in terms of the cinematography, Carlos Gonzalez. But it was a very small crew, you know. Also give credit to Shamika, who did the art direction. But it was still, with that being said, it was a very small crew and I had to take on a lot. And I'm an introvert. So when you start asking me 100 questions a day, I'm just like, hold on, my brain is like overloaded, you know? So even the mental part alone was just like overwhelming. But also just not knowing where the next thing would come from in terms of getting this film done was very challenging. Like the church scenes and having to approach the Corey Jones family and ask for their blessing to kind of um, include his story in the film. Having to step in front of my mom's church right after a church service and say, "Hey, can you guys wait another 10 minutes and just give me the most authentic worship that you can and let me film it?" Like these were things that I had to constantly do time and time again, and it forced me to kind of be a leader and step outside of myself and kind of um, not talk it but walk it. So the process was it showed me who I really am. You know, and
mm,
I know you might hear that a lot with directors say that, but this was really a life changing experience because it really helped me to tap into another level of faith and like allow me to see God in a way that is precious because I couldn't do it without him. Like I was literally at his mercy of kind of walking me through this. And he didn't fail me. And now I'm over here talking to Kevin Scott, man, in the UK, man. You know, it's just you know, and I give all credit and all glory to God. It's not me, fam, but it definitely changed me and made me more of a man in a lot of ways. You know?
no, but I think that's, you know what I mean? Like, really impressive because I think sometimes, right, it's we think, well, I don't have this thing, so I can't do that,
Right,
right?
right,
But it's you have to get creative, right? You have to get innovative. And there's things that you can do if you just think out of the box, but we're so used to doing things within these lines, right? You go to school and college and uni, and they're like, great, this is how you do things, right? No, 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 don't do that. That's reckless. That's crazy. No, this is how you do it. So we get programmed into this mindset,
right.
and there's so many things that could be going past us, could be slipping out of our grasp because you don't want to step across the line. You don't want to think outside that box. And I
Absolutely.
always believe that you might not have something right now, right? And you might not have all the components to do something, but always be ready,
Absolutely.
right? Always be ready, because then when that last bit comes into place, or that other, something opens up, you can seize that opportunity,
Right.
right? And you should always be ready to seize the opportunity, because you'll regret it when those things go past you. And it's like you were ready, right? You stepped outside the box. You were like, yo, could we film this church scene? Like, could we do this thing? And that's, I think, a load of people, and whether it's first time directors, what I mean, whether it's someone stepping into the workplace, someone looking to ask out someone, like that's something that everyone should hear. What I mean, that you don't necessarily wait, you just step out and you take that leap of faith.
Absolutely, absolutely. We create giants. Man. We create a lot of giants in our life. Man. We scare ourselves off the porch, if you will, a lot of times, right?
mm.
In fear and just, oh, well, this is why not. This is why I can't do it. Well, why not? Why not? Why? Just try. Just take one step. But again, that requires us to take the eye off ourselves, you know, because if we are completely relying on ourselves in a lot of these situations, that's why we are scared. Like if again, if I would have believed in myself solely, I wouldn't have had the courage to to do it, to say, okay, all I have is this. This is not enough to get a film done.
Mm.
This is not even enough to pay the crew or pay for the camera. So we're going to start this thing, and I'm just going to trust, and we're going to trust that the end will come. Like you look at this film, Kevin. This film, we shot this film in 2017 all the way through 2021 because
Oh,
we had to
okay.
wait for the documentary portion of the Corey Jones trial to play out. So we were shooting for a number of years, and people are looking at me like, "Yo, what's up, Carlos, man?" you
Mm.
know, like we're starting to doubt you. We're starting to question um, the trust that we put in you. And I can't, I always tell, I teach screenwriting and directing as well. So I always tell my students, yo, remember that it's your vision, it's your eyes. So I can explain the process to I Turn Blue to everyone that's a part of the process, but they can't see because they don't have your eyes. The most they can do is believe. So I could
Mm.
explain all day, oh, this is going to happen. Just trust me, trust me, trust me. But on their part, either they do or they don't, because I'm seeing it, but I can't pop out my eyes and what I feel in my heart and say, here, take a peek. So it's a lot of it's also battling that, battling your convictions, battling what you believe in, and not being swayed when people, they're not even being negative. It's just, again, they can't see what you see,
Mm.
because I'm looking through something that can't be seen. You know what I'm saying? So I can't say, okay, what I'm looking at is this picture on the wall. I can't point to a finite point.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, it's that was very challenging. I'm not gonna lie.
Mm. But it sounds like, your experience with Chloe really helped influence and guide you through this situation, which is just like, what I mean? How valuable do you think like a kind of mentorship, an experience can guide you in life?
I used to, what's the word? I used to not value it a lot at all, but being around Chloe, and then at NYU being around Spike Lee, you always think that you're at a level until you see someone at another level, and you're
Yep.
like, oh, I wasn't really doing nothing at all, man. You know, I'm not as big as I thought I was.
Mm.
And you're humble. You're like, oh, okay, they have a different level of ferociousness. They have a different level of discipline. They have a different level of courage and tenacity, and organization. And to see Chloe again just go to a world that is completely foreign to her as a Chinese American and be among Native Americans and try and tell a story that is pure in a lot of ways, and just to see how the people of that land like really gave her their complete trust to tell a story that was authentic, okay, yeah, I got to get my head out to you. I see what's possible. You know, you don't even got to say much to me. Just let me watch. You know,
Mm,
let me watch how you move, and I'm gonna pick up something. You know,
mm, mm,
and I will say now I have complete um, respect for mentorship. You know, because I do believe a lot of times the problem is um, us as you know, as people, we're thinking that we're operating on the level, and we think it should just come to us, but we don't really see the level that everyone else is operating on. So we get a false sense of how fast we're moving. And know that you know, you're really running against a racehorse, and you're a little pony.
yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah. But too many people don't realize they're a pony, man. They think they're Mustangs, and it's
come
just like,
on,
no,
man.
you are a pony.
You are My Little Pony. I don't know. Oh, man, this man got a
um,
V8 under his engine, man.
yeah. Oh man, I remember I was doing Mai Tai, and I'd been doing it for a while, and I'm just like, you know what? I've got hands, man. My kicks are slick, right? And it was a time, and the gym I was training at, like they had this connection with like these Thai trainers and fighters, and so they would come to the gym and train and everything like that. And this guy, I forget his name, he was a great guy, but I was just like, I feel I can spar with you, man. Yeah, you know, I think I'm ready. I think yeah, let's do it. He pieced me up. But it this is the thing, right? It wasn't he wasn't even throwing hard shots or anything like that. It was just little tap, 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 tap. But it just the speed and fluidity just made me go, oh, I'm a pony, right? I thought, man, I've got skills, man. And I was just like, oh, I know nothing, right? And that was such an interesting experience because it made me go, all right, I think I'm training hard, but I need to go deeper,
Yeah,
right? I need to soak up even more information
right.
if I want to go anywhere with this. And it was just that thing that I took from that. And I think it's like you can take these experiences, right, and just incorporate it into life, you know, because it's like because I do communications, you know, as the day job. And I want to be in the room with the most intelligent people because I feel I bring some different things to the table, right? I can innovate, I can do all of this, but I do not know everything. So it's always interesting to hear what other people are saying, to see these other things that are going down, because you gain from that experience and you can take that with you.
Right. Right. No, I absolutely agree. It reminds me of whenever you get a chance, watch the video on YouTube with Bow Wow and Kobe Bryant. So Bow Wow is playing Kobe Bryant, right? And Kobe is Kobe, and
Mm.
But Bow Wow thinks he can hang with Kobe. So Bow Wow says this line, man. He goes, man. I mean, excuse me. Kobe Bryant says this line, and he goes, man. It's a whole. And I hope I say it right, but he goes, it's a whole lot different watching a great white on TV than it is swimming with him. And it goes back to, yeah, okay, we watch things on TV and we watch people perform great acts, and whether it be athletic or doing something that's very artistic, and it looks so simple because they're making it look simple. But when you actually
Mm.
get out in the water and swim it with the shark, or do this situation, you realize how hard it is to kind of perform these things that these people are performing and that are having success and making it look easy, whether it be sports, whether it be film, et cetera, painting, whatever you want to call it.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I just remember the first time I did an open mic, right? And the week before, I'm just in the queue and you're talking to people and you're just thinking like, man, I feel I'm funny, right? I make people laugh. I can do this shit, right? And I'm the guy I was standing with. He's just like, oh man, everyone tells me I'm so funny. I'm gonna do this thing, and like we didn't get up that first week, but the next week we both went, and I remember he went up, and nothing hit, just nothing hit, and you just saw the confidence just drain out of him as he was on the stage. And then I'm just thinking, fuck, how's it gonna go for me? And it's like you get up there and you start to kind of, try and feel your way through. And luckily it kind of all worked out for me. But the anxiety, right? You're just sweating, you're just feeling so like confined, and it's just like you know what I mean?
Right.
It's just that fear because you don't understand, right? It looks so effortless when you watch these great comedians doing their thing, and you just think, I make my friends laugh, that's gonna be easy.
Right.
And it's just like, no, no. You haven't, like, you've still got stabilizers, right? You're nowhere near that. You know what I mean? They're doing wheelies, and you have just taken your first steps, man. You know what I mean? And I think that's the thing we need to understand sometimes. There's so much hubris. Like you just think, oh, I can do that's simple. I can do that thing. And it's just like, no.
I agree. I agree 1,000. I apologize. This is the editor for Between Sins. He got these heavy feet walking back and forth. Because Carlos Gonzalez is a good dude, man. So I apologize.
No, man. Luckily, homie did a good job with the film, so we're gonna give him a pass.
Oh,
right?
he said you did a good job with the film. He said thanks, man.
That, like, when you were making the film, did it all go how the story was originally envisioned, or like did you change things in the edit? Did you change things on the day, when you saw the first playback and thought, actually, no, let's shoot it a different way? Like, how much change happened?
Most of the change actually happened in the editing, and I always, believe in this philosophy of, the first part of the storytelling is in the screenwriting, the second part of the storytelling is as production, and the third part of the storytelling is in the editing. I actually, I also do a lot of writing, novel, of course, screenwriting. And when I do my writing, I like to, I would call myself a discovery writer, which is, sometimes I don't know where the character is going. I don't know, where the plot is going. And I'm just waking up and just writing and not even thinking about how it's going to end and not even worrying about how it's going to end. So I said it to say that in the editing, me and Carlos Gonzalez, we had a lot of exploration to kind of wrap up the story. We kind of went with how the story was feeling, how the movie was feeling at the time. And we would just get up and say, you know what, we need this. Let's get up and shoot this scene. Oh, you know what? I kind of feel like black and white might be good in this portion of the film. Let's go ahead and try to find some scenes that kind of fit this feel that's kind of be molded. So I would say the editing is the most unheralded part of filmmaking. It kind of, again, goes back to, oddly enough, that idea of what character is, of it's the things that you can't see that perfects a person. It's also, in likewise manner, it's the things that you can't see that perfect the story. So the editing was immensely important in adjusting the story and in perfecting the story to the best way Between Sins could be perfected. But a lot of times, again, we were just going by feel, going by what we were creating at the time. And you know what? Let's grab something else. Let's go. I'm Los to say Carlos Gonzalez. He'd be like, "Yo, I'm feeling the film kind of going in this direction. What do you think about this?" I'm like, "Okay, cool. You want to go shoot that?" And we would shoot it. So yeah, for sure. Like the story altered a lot, but the most it altered was in the editing portion of the film.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, when you were editing,
Yeah.
how much separation did you like try and give yourself from like a first watch to kind of figure out this is where we actually want to take this story? Or is it kind of intuitive? Like as soon as you see something, you can understand the changes that need to be made?
So I was learning the whole process of, I mean, constantly learning. So it was intuitive in a sense that I was actively applying things that I was learning from day to day as we were going through the editing process. So I actually did the first pass of the film of just laying everything down as I saw the story. And I probably, it took me a long time, not gonna lie, to kind of sync up everything because the way we shot was just wow. I mean, I'm not gonna, like the fact that this is a movie in a lot of ways is a testament to a lot of things in itself. So the puzzle piece in part gave me ample enough time to kind of separate from the story. And then when I was able to kind of lay the first pass down, I sat down with Carlos and we kind of figured out what the story really was. And a lot of credit to him for being the extra eyes and seeing things that I could not see in terms of editing the film and in terms of even the whole creation of the story. It's having, this experience taught me that it's good and it's vital and essential. And actually, Chloe taught me this as well to trust people. You know, film is collaborative. You know, it's not
Mm,
just you. You know, you're not just making this thing by yourself. You're working with actors and you're trusting them to see things in that character that you can't see. You're trusting them to bring out traits and nuances in a character that you can't see. And it's the same thing with every other part of the filmmaking process in terms of crew. You know, to trust Lowe's you know, to see something about storytelling and theme and a voice and a tone of a story that maybe might have been lost to me or I might have overlooked. So that to me, that's vital to have someone that you can trust to see those
mm.
things you can't see. You know.
Yeah, yeah. A filmmaker, great guy, Marcus Fleming, told me something similar, right? And he had a film out called Blonde Purple, which a great film, a really good. Like, if you enjoyed Spike Lee's Inside Man, it's it's kind of themically the same, but very different. But it is such a great, I highly recommend if you like that kind of film, that kind of crime, kind of suspense type of thing. Man, Blonde Purple is an incredible film to check out. But yeah, he's definitely said some similar things about, trusting the actor to bring something to life.
Right. I mean, you have to. I mean, that's why you hired them. You know, like I mean, it goes back to what we were talking about, even like hubris or pride, like to think you see it all. That's kind of you just kind of not allowing the film to go in every direction that it can go if you're trying to micromanage every moment. You know what I'm saying? Like there are things that you're not going to be able to see. You know, that's why
Mm,
when you're driving a car, you have rear view mirrors and everything. Like there are angles that you can't see, and you need another, another vision, another opinion. You know what I'm saying? To verify or discredit what you think it is that you're seeing. You know, so yeah.
yeah, no, very true, man. Very true. Now, what has this like experience done for you? Right? Because this is like your first feature. You know what I mean? You had all of these things going again, budget and just all of these things, but you did it, right? You did it. Now the film comes out on the 31st over here.
Yes, sir.
Like, is it out statewide yet or? Is it 31st out there too?
31st out here as well on Amazon, Xfinity, Cox, Vudu, um, Xfinity. So these are networks outside of Amazon that are local to the United States.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, how do you feel, right? How do you feel about all of this process, where you are now, and then the fact that the film's dropping on Friday, man?
I feel amazing. And honestly, this is the first time that I've felt these feelings. Like, so even when it went to, film festival, American Black Film Festival, shout out to Nicole and Jeff Friday. Um, I was still trying to manage expectations and kind of not be too high, too low. So for
Mm,
these past years of making this film, I've always tried to kind of just, again, manage my expectations and emotions. But when I found out that we finally got distribution, that was kind of for me the finish line. Like my wife, she was like, "How do you feel?" And I was like, I actually feel great. And that was the first time I could kind of really say that and kind of really let the full range of emotions that I was feeling kind of be let out and know that they would not be denied or, disappointed, what I'm saying, be let
yeah.
down. So this process has kind of taught me perseverance, to be honest with you. Taught me to trust others, taught me to lead by example. And it's also given me the space to um, present myself at this moment to you and to the rest of the world in a light that, as much as I'm trying to not disappoint God, what I'm saying. I think if this film would have came out any earlier, I was still doing things that I'm not necessarily proud of. So I think the maturity throughout this film is and the time that it took, from speaking for me personally, to come to a level of maturity, um, to where now when I'm talking to you, you can't say, you can be like, oh, he's not just like those people who were in the church who were saying one thing and doing another. I'm of course still not perfect, but I definitely can, say with confidence at this point that I'm striving for something that's greater than me. And
Mm.
and this film has this film was the engine behind that change and that growth. So I'm very appreciative about that.
Man, that's great to hear. That's great to hear. And you know what? I think if everyone's honest, like we're all still striving, right? We're still, no one's a finished thing, right?
Right.
It's about evolving and, what I mean, growing. It's a journey.
Right.
You know what I mean? And you're nowhere near the end of that journey, right? So you're always acquiring new knowledge, new information to guide you where to go next.
Right.
So even the things that you might look back on and be like, that wasn't the best, but it was still a building block into where you are now. You know what I mean? So without those things, you wouldn't be who you are in this time and space. You know what I
Absolutely.
mean?
Absolutely. I totally agree with you on that. And I'm learning that, the destination, it's the journey, man. The journey is what's satisfying. We disregard the journey a lot. We always like, I can't wait to that next thing, and it's always going to be a next thing. So just, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Just even enjoying the transformation of ourselves and the growth of who we are destined to become. I think that's the real fun and that's the real party of life. And these
Mm.
things that we're looking for at the end of the rainbow is just, mirages. Like you never really get there. You know.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm glad you are enjoying this process. That you know what I mean. This lead up to the film, like going out into the world, because I think there's a lot of times these big things happen to us, and because you're in your head and you don't appreciate what's going on around you. So I think that's really great that you can do that. You know.
Yeah, thank you. It's just it hasn't been easy to get to this point, but I'm definitely glad that I'm here as long
Mm,
along with everyone else who's been a part of this film.
yeah. What was the festival circuit like for you? You know what I mean? Hearing those first reactions to the film.
I'll say this: every time that I've been able to show this film, it's always been one or two people who will come up to me and they can't verbalize what it is they're feeling, and it's like, okay, not everyone, everyone may not get where I'm trying to go, and that's okay. Like, I understand that, but I've been grateful to see just these little fragments of, of people like yourself, who get the film or get that there's something about the film, even if they can't fully identify with it wholly. I'm just getting these people who are coming up to me and they're always like, yo, I can't express this feeling, but it has me shaking. And that to me is the success and what I wanted to come across with this film. Because again, I was never going for a physical thing. I was just using the physical to tap into the spiritual. So when people approach me and say, I don't have words for this film, to me, it's tapped into that inner self that I was trying to kind of reach. So um, the film festival circuit was a lot of just, you know, ensuring me that, Carlos, something was achieved that she was trying to achieve. May not be perfect, always could be improved and, enhanced, but you're
Mm,
definitely tapping into something that is wholly you and your artures, so to speak.
mm. Yeah, no, that definitely, I feel that makes a lot of sense. And it's what, something that kind of I was thinking about when watching this, because there, what I mean, we're seeing all of these situations, we're seeing this, nuance in the characters and the story and where it's going, the experiences that Koi has, and the choices that he has to make. And I think there's not a load of things that necessarily give that moral foundation. You know what I mean? There's a lot of shows that are good shows, fun shows, you know what I mean? But it's, I mean, you're not necessarily getting, some moral guidance from Dexter. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's not quite that thing. But as a kid, right, I remember stuff like Transformers and He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. And at the end of the cartoon, there would just be this thing and be like, so kids, like, you know what I mean? And they give you this moral, which you're like, oh, but it was very heavy handed. It was clunky. But as a little kid, you don't see that.
Absolutely.
You just see these characters talking about this thing and being like, friends can have disagreements, but you still friends. Remember that, kids. And you're like, oh. And so when you have a film like this that gives you these situations, but then is like, look, but this is what you should be doing, right? This is the path, right? Don't go backwards. Keep trying to go forwards, even though it might be difficult,
Right.
right? It's about evolution. I think that is an important thing, and we don't always get it. So when these things, come up, when these things are created and put together, and I think there's a power in that, you know what I mean?
Right.
So, yo, man, hats off to you and
Yes,
your
sir.
peoples for putting this together, man. Because yeah, honestly, I really enjoyed it. And another thing was, I was just like, yo, there's some great black directors coming through. You know what I mean?
Oh,
There really is, because there was elements at the beginning that I'm watching this thing and just the camera work, and you know what I mean, the way you were getting into the characters, right? It reminded me of that early Spike Lee stuff. And you know what I mean? So I'm thinking about that, and then that made me think of people like Boots Riley, you know, Felicia Pride, Gina Prince Bywood, and just you know what I mean, Marcia Green, Marissa Green, even you know what I mean, and just like these crazy talented crop of people coming through, and I know I've missed people out, but you know what I mean. It's really, man, it just makes me happy, right? Because we're not just getting the same old stories.
Right.
We're getting new stories, new nuances, and I think that is so valuable. So, man, yeah, just hats off, man. Hats off.
Thank you, sir. And I wholly agree. Like you said in the beginning, all we need is just a chance. What a lot of people are asking for, is just a chance. And
Mm.
the fact that I was given this chance, I don't want to, mess it up. So I just thank you for just even your encouragement and saying that, to even put me amongst the company of those other directors. That is encouraging.
Hey, man, I'm just saying what I saw, man, and yeah, this was a great, yeah. I really enjoyed the film. Oh, I was going to let you go, but before I let you go,
Yes, sir.
let me just ask you about the distribution situation, because how did that come about? Because you know, in these conversations I have with people, that is definitely one of those hurdles that people come up against. So how did all of that kind of go down for you?
Um, so to be honest with you, we submitted to quite a few film festivals and it didn't necessarily work out. Um, but I'm telling you, Kevin, like I always held on to the fact that we don't need a lot of eyes to see. We just need the right eyes to see it. So when we got to the American Black Film Festival, I was just telling the crew and just everyone who was a part of the film that all we need is the right eyes. So the film screened and the right eyes were there, who saw it and who got it. And Buffalo 8 distribution, shout out to Buffalo 8, shout out to Ella. They approached us, and the rest is history up to this point. But it wasn't. Again, I have to keep on giving credit to just the belief in the vision and just the belief in something greater than me, because not to kind of speak like a prophet or something like that, but every belief that I held on to, despite the odds, thus far, it has happened. So I would say, as advice to anyone who's seeking distribution, even just seeking to make a film, is just don't waver. Hold your ground in what you believe in, man. If you believe that you have something to tell it, and just trust that everything will come together, to create the path that you believe you should be walking on. And that's what happened, man. I know it sounds mythical and just like, magical, but in a lot of ways it is, because it happened just like that.
But I will say, Carlos, man, you know, as I said earlier, right? It's so easy for opportunity to go by.
Right,
So you have to be ready to seize it when it's there. And
right.
so you were ready and you seized it. You know what I mean? And now we're gonna drop a gem on the world, man. You know what I mean?
Woo, woo. Yes, 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 man. Dropping them diamonds and the pearls
Oh, for sure, huh? For sure, for sure. Now, when this drops, right? When
Mhm.
people go watch it and enjoy it, they'll be going, "Yo, when's the next Carlos B. Miller joint coming out?" So, is there plans for the next feature?
So I've written, yes, yes. I'm gonna go ahead and put it out there. Man. Like, I definitely, there's this story called Black Caesar that Carson Gonzalez really likes.
Yes,
When I told him
yes.
about the idea, but so I'm gonna go ahead and put it out there.
It has to happen.
um, Real quick, I was down here in South Florida. There's a few islands around Key West, Key Biscayne, and there's one called Caesar's Rock. And I was visiting the area with my wife, and I kind of want to know the backstory of Caesar's Rock. And the story goes, it's kind of like a fable, mythological. I won't say mythology, but just a story that kind of has been passed down, and it's based off this pirate who's named Black Caesar. And the story goes that this character Black Caesar was an African chief in Africa who was enslaving um, people who looked like him until one day he was tricked into slavery himself and was sent across the transatlantic. And just so happens that a hurricane came across the slave ship, destroyed the ship. He survived and became a pirate until he was hung in Virginia many years later. So that's the story that I want to tell, man. Yeah. Yeah, I want to tell a Black pirate story that starts with us enslaving ourselves, which you don't really see, but ends with, it ends with helping to free people who look like him on other slave ships, as well as just be an adventure of just conquering, overcoming loss, and becoming a king. So of the seas.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay. You know what? I'm with homie in the back, man. This needs to happen, right? Because firstly, I think that's one thing that people don't want to talk about, right? The fact that there were tribes and peoples that helped, the Dutch and the English and all the others enslave people,
Right.
which you can understand, right? What when you look at things and you think, well, if they might come for us, so if we help them, then we kind of give ourselves a buy, right? Which no, you're just giving yourself more time, because eventually they're coming for you.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So you definitely it happened. You can understand it's never right, but you can understand how these things can take place. But it's never talked about. And also the other thing that's not talked about, Black pirates, right? Black cowboys, not really talked about. And oh man, I forget my man's name, but Harder They Fall.
Yep. He's making a new one right now. Yeah.
I know. Like when I see some of these films, I'm just like, yo, I want to be in your film, man. Like, I was watching, like, there were certain things on like Instagram, like Cleveland Watkins kept on putting up these images, and I'm just like, what music videos he's shooting? Everyone's just like cowboys. And then suddenly then it all comes to it, and you see, and you're like, yo, that film is sick, right?
Yeah.
And it's not just a great film, like the way the soundtrack worked with the imagery on that film, right?
Absolutely.
It opened up the London Film Festival. And so I went to the press screening of it, and we watched it in the Royal Festival Hall. So it's this music venue, and they'd never showed films in there like that before. And so the sound is so great in that space, and this film starts, and it's just, oh man, I was so gripped. I was such in awe. It just blew me away. That
Absolutely.
was, but yeah, there wasn't many films about Black cowboys, and only recently, in the last few years, that through like looking at things and reading and stuff, you learn about there was all these Black pirates.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
it's just like, yo, Black Caesar has to happen, son.
Right. I agree. And the fact that he was with Blackbeard, who's one of the most famous pirates there is. So
Oh shit.
yeah, so there's a lot of play in there.
Ooh. Okay. Well, let me know when you're doing the casting. I'll take a trip out to Florida, man.
For real, man. Come across the pond.
I'll bring some tea and crumpets for you. Huh?
That's a plan, man. I'm with it.
Oh man, Carlos, this has been great. I really
pleasure.
appreciate your time, man. I really do. How can people keep track of what you're doing, man? Let people know where they can find you.
So as far as the film, you could go to betweensins.com if you want to see a trailer of the film. As far as social media handles for the film, it's either Between Sins Film or Between Sins Movie. As far as the handles for Instagram, TikTok, et cetera, et cetera. As far as me, I'm not gonna lie, I'm still working on getting myself out there, Kevin. Introvert, so I'm working on it. But you can check out my Instagram, which is creative_preserve. As far as the Instagram, but as far as anything outside of that, I'm a ghost. But I'm trying to appear slowly integrate to the world.
Yo, definitely, Carlos, man, definitely, put yourself out there, because I think there's some valuable lessons people can learn from your experiences and everything that you've been doing. And especially the fact that you got Live Fresh, right, and just you're a professor, so it's just all of these things that I think you can gain from. And that's whether you're trying to get into film, whatever you're doing. I think there's lessons that will be valuable throughout life. So man, put yourself out there, tell your story, man, do your thing.
Yes, sir. He's pushing me out there. Even though I'm kind of like fighting, like, I don't know. But yeah, I hear you loud and clear, and I agree. And I just thank you for the encouragement to express myself.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, man, I just feel like when this drops, people are gonna pay notice. So, hey, enjoy it. Enjoy the experience. Enjoy the 31st and everything that comes from that, man. And hey, I look forward to seeing, your next production.
Thank you, Kevin. And this is historic. This goes in the archives. This is one of my first interviews, so especially the first one with the critics. So this is historic for me, and I appreciate the opportunity, and I appreciate you for kind of just again taking the time to see the film. You could have watched a lot of films, but you watched Between Sins. So I salute you, and I thank you for the opportunity.
Hey man, it's all down to AJ, man. In AJ, I trust. So you've got yourself one of the best publicists out there doing the game, man. So hey, you know what I mean? You're definitely in good hands with her.
Thank you.
All right, man. Well, thank you for your time. Really appreciate that. And yeah, good luck, man. Not that you will need it, man. Just keep doing your thing.
All right, man. Peace from the USA to the UK, man.
All right, man. Yo, peace, man.